Qantas is once again flying its larger wide-body aircraft on domestic flights. Today I'm in the rain at Cairns in far north Queensland, and I'm going to try the Qantas A330 Business Class Cairns to Sydney flight. At check-in I got seat 1A and then headed on the short walk down the long pier to the Qantas Club. There's no Qantas Business Class lounge per se at Cairns, but thankfully business class gives access to the Qantas Club with big windows overlooking the gates. Now, the club itself is decent, up on the top floor of the airport. It's in effect one large box, packed with chairs and also today people. It's also got very good air conditioning, which in the wet weather was most welcome. Through those big windows I could see another A330 landing. The bar and food areas are all along the inner wall, while along the outer wall are by far the most comfortable areas to sit, with great views of the vast tree-lined bulk of Mount Whitfield and indeed the distant hangars. Plus a second A330 service to land at Cairns today. It's turning into quite a wide-body hub, with a double A330 service to Sydney and occasional daily A330 flights to Melbourne. The bar itself is open, but the food has changed a bit in the Cairns Qantas Club. Now you have to stand in, well, really quite a long queue for plated meals. The plates for the meals are variants of sandwiches, nachos in a glass, or cheese plates. It's not exactly pre-flight dining, but it comes close. And the bar itself, well, that's open from midday. Now this flight on the A330, you can see it there, it cost a mere $122, which is one of the bargains of the year, with an upgrade processed using frequent flyer miles. So waiting in the club, and soon boarding was called. I left past the vast historical aircraft hall, which includes a propeller from an old DC-3 that for many years was at the main gates to Cairns Airport. Good to see priority boarding for business at Cairns, and you also get to walk out at runway level to see the front of your really quite large aircraft. Now, quite simply, this trip is all about the Qantas A330 Business Class cabin. Every business class seat has got a 16-inch video screen with AV on demand. Screens are touch screens, but also work with the older controllers under the flap. Qantas's Q streaming Wi-Fi system is back on again, which means you can watch in-flight films and TV programs from a tablet or a smartphone, along with viewing the in-flight map. Of note are the very good quality noise-cancelling headphones. I really couldn't fault the audio quality, nor indeed the video quality on the very large TV screens, which seem to be just as good as watching on a decent laptop at home.
Cargo. That should be done very shortly. This will be underway. Once airborne, forecast flight time just on 2.5 hours, so should put us into Sydney on schedule.
And there we go, about to head out of Cairns down to Sydney in our business class seat. Seats are arranged in what's fast becoming a normal 1-to-1 configuration, with one seat by the window and the opposite staggered so your feet fit into the hole created by the following cocktail table. Now this is great if you're on your own, as it gives one-step access to the aisle. However, beware that not all seats are created equally. This is because odd-numbered rows have their fixed table position between the seat and the window, while the solo seats in the even-numbered rows have the same table position between the seat and the aisle. Aisle side seats have an armrest which retracts to effectively add an extra 5 centimetres to the total seat width, if you're planning to have a kip that is, although probably not on a flight of this duration. On the outside of the shelf are sockets for headphones, USB and power. And there we go, up over the mangrove swamp and a superb climbing turn away from the airfield as we prepare to track down the coast. Now, as soon as we were in the cruise, it was time for the most important part of the flight, the bar trolley. And as a bonus, hot food was available on Qantas for the first time in a very long time. Gone are the old bento boxes for the duration of COVID, and now hot meals are once again back. There are 2 hot meal options: roasted lamb on the bone with veggies and mash and gravy, or a hot chicken salad. Now, I went for the lamb and it was deliciously tender, falling off the bone with great veggies too. And you can select bread from a basket with wholemeal or white on offer, and of course with butter. The sparkling wine was the Grand Bourges Pinot Noir Chardonnay. Now, I've got to say, it's a bit of an acquired taste, but it does have an attractive nose of strawberry, stone fruit and biscuity notes. That leads to a richly flavoured, generous palate with a creamy feel and a lovely crisp finish. Later on in the flight, I switched to the white wine, which were the Coldstream Hills 2018 Chardonnay. Every seat has got a video screen, and pressing the aeroplane button at the bottom of the screen brings up the usual moving map. The screens, of course, touch screens, but also work with that older controller, and you can use the little toggle buttons on there to bring up the map. The A330 business class seat slide out trays, large, very large indeed actually. It rotates out from under the side table. We're crossing over the Hawkesbury now and then over the northern beaches as we start to begin our descent into Sydney. Now, as you'd expect in business, the bar is still open. For beer, the James Squire 50 Lashes is a decent pale ale, but alas, on today's flight was the only beer stocked on board, and it seems to be that Qantas is still getting fully back to normal. Seatbelts on now, and with Sydney in the distance, the crew asked if I'd like to try the red wine. Now, this red is from the vineyard of Bethany First Village, and it's a Shiraz Cabernet. It's one of the best reds I've tasted in a very long time. Reflecting the cooler vintage of the year, the 2017 Bethany First Village Barossa Shiraz Cabernet has a nose of piercing, fresh blue and red fruits with a hint of gunsmoke and red floral notes. It's also got a combination of black cherries and mulberries from the cooler conditions. They're offset by the rich and generous tannins that envelop the fruit and provide a plush and structured framework. The stony, earthy textures on the palate ensure freshness, drive and indeed ample length to this wine. Not too long to enjoy it though, because we're on short finals already. Cabin is locked down and we're in for a great view of the harbour before heading straight into the airport. Looking at the cabin again, centre seats, they're pretty much the same as on the side with 7 rows of the 28-seat business class cabin, although the business class cabin itself is split into 2. There's a much smaller business class cabin at the back, and that's often much quieter. Now, this flight to New South Wales at 3.5 hours is one of Qantas's longer domestic flights, but with lounges, hot meals and in-flight entertainment once again available, it's almost certainly one of the better ones. Prices for these flights are an absolute bargain at the moment. A Qantas business class flight costs only $122. That's purchased online 2 days before the flight, with a business class upgrade processed using Qantas points. Now you've got to select the aircraft carefully to get the Qantas A330, but this is the one you want, as it offers a brand new, state-of-the-art, all-aisle access business class cabin with a very good 1-to-1 layout, very similar to those on the Qantas 787 Dreamliner.
And for those of you leaving us here in Sydney, your bags will be available at the carousels on the ground floor. Please be careful with the lockers, your bags may have moved during the flight, and when the seatbelt sign has been switched off, you'll be leaving through the forward door.
Going back to the seat, every seat has got a large L-shaped shelf with a sidebar for stowing magazines and indeed the noise-reducing headphones, which are on a hook next to the seat, along with an LED reading light complemented by another light under the shelf. Even though you don't really need it on a short domestic hop, Qantas' latest generation business class seats do convert into a fully flat bed, 80 inches long, and that's just over 2 meters. So there you go, a decent flight, and indeed, now we can get back into the air. It really is a joy flying this way again, and right back to how flights should be, with a decent service and most of the trimmings. In terms of timing of the flight, we arrived at the gate exactly on time. In only 20 minutes or so, I was out of the airport and then on the airport train heading underground, through Central, and then past Museum Station, and finally onto Circular Quay. And there you go, that's Circular Quay, and we've properly arrived right in the heart of Sydney, overlooking the bridge and the Opera House. The flight itself, thoroughly enjoyable, and a great trip.